And good morning. Welcome back to my channel. This is Long Story Short. I'm Heather Long, and I keep thinking I need to actually write an intro for myself that I will remember and say it every time, but I haven't quite gotten there yet. I think let's see. I should say I'm Heather Long. I'm a USA Today best-selling author, chaos gremlin, and an unapologetic lover of morally gray characters. I will say that my last video, I forgot to do that entirely, and I'm not going back to re-record it. Anyway, fun fact, if you watched last week's video, you know I didn't do that. And I'll get it figured out sooner or later. For now, I like this format. I like being able just to talk and to, treat this as a conversation between me and whoever happens to be watching. So thank you for coming by and hanging out. This week we are finishing up the last of what I will call my interview type videos. As I explained last week, I started this off as doing it as an interview style, that I had questions that I get asked a lot, and so I started answering them in groups, and then I was doing the videos in different chunks so that it wasn't like a 2-hour thing, because nobody wants to listen for 2 hours. I mean, if you do, awesome. Totally down for that. But right now I figured it would just be easier if I didn't try to do a 2-hour video. Also, if I screw up, I really don't want to have to do take 2 as a 2-hour video, because that would be not fun. I have actually had to do a take 2 a couple of times now, and just because it didn't record or it didn't save, or I was doing one and it totally just turned all the sound off. I don't even know why it turned off all my sound. It just went goodbye. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. This is the last of the interview style. The next couple of videos after this are a little more scripted in their topics, and I'm looking forward to it. So thank you for being here, and do the like, subscribe, and follow, and all that other stuff. And there's like links down there in the description, and my Patreon and my reader group and my Instagram and all that fun stuff. So there you go. There's the, please follow me. Thank you so much. Also, leave comments. I will do my best to respond to comments. I don't know that I will be able to respond to them in real time, because I do travel quite a bit. I'm also on deadlines a lot, but I will make an active effort to check. Promise. Scout's honor. I was a Girl Scout. I don't even know if we have a Girl Scout sign. It's been a while. Anyway, I wanted to talk today about some personal insights, at least for me, as far as being an author. I've been published since 2009. I've been both traditionally published. I have done self-publishing. I consider myself something of a hybrid. And I've had experiences both back in the day when we would send off the whole manuscript and wait with a SASE inside it, which is for those of you who don't know, a SASE is a self-addressed stamped envelope. You had to send an envelope in that had enough postage to return your manuscript to you. Otherwise, if they didn't do anything with it, they would trash it. And a lot of times, at least if you were me, you couldn't afford necessarily to get that many copies of your manuscript. So the SASE would make sure I got the manuscript back, so if I wanted to submit it somewhere else, I could. Occasionally, the manuscripts would come back with comments and a letter with an editorial letter that would say things like, this is really good, but it's got some weak characterization, or really enjoyed the work, but I think it needs a better hook in the beginning, and it doesn't grab you. And when publishing was very much just controlled by the big publishing houses, and this is before the days of Kindle Unlimited, or being able to self-publish through Smashwords, or when Nook started their Nook Press and Kobo got involved. I mean, we have a lot of options now that just didn't exist then. You had to get past the gatekeepers, and the way you got past the gatekeepers was strong hooks. You knew that when you were getting in front of someone, in all likelihood, unless you had an agent, which that was also, to get an agent, you had to have a strong hook. So let's just say you didn't have an agent, you didn't have someone at the publishing house who was looking for your book, you'd end up in a slush pile. And the only way you got out of that slush pile is if you stood out. And it's hard to stand out when you've got a lot of exceptional peers who are all doing the same thing you are. So it's a lot of times it comes down to voice, it comes down to getting the right story at the right moment, at the right time. And I mean, you can't always predict these things. So anyway, you would send this stuff off, and you would get you could get these letters back that would tell you, these are the things that they could see would be, you need to work on. And if you were really fortunate, you would get what is basically called a revise and resubmit. And so you would then be able to revise the manuscript or the first 3 chapters or whatever you were sending in. Usually when you sent it in, you had a blurb, a synopsis, and like the first 3 chapters of your book, so that they had they could tell whether or not you knew how to build a book. You had good hooks to get the readers interested. They could kind of get a feel for it, and then they get a good feel for your writing. And if you were really lucky, all of these things gelled and the person reading it really liked it and either wanted to rep it as an agent or wanted to publish it as a acquiring editor. But even getting a contract didn't mean your book was going to get published, because if you couldn't get through the editing, I mean, there's so much that went into it back then. And you could look at like anywhere between 1 to 3 years after you get contracted before your book might ever see the light of day. So it's very different from the way it is now. And so I've been around for a hot minute, and there were things back then that were, enormously challenging. And when you would, break through one of those barriers, it was a championship moment. It was huge. And then self-publishing came along, and it was really poo-pooed by a lot of authors, because they were like, oh, well, that's just too easy. You don't have to get through all the barriers now. But just saying self-publishing is easy doesn't mean it is. Sure, anyone can write a book. And you know what? That's true. Anyone can write a book. Anyone could write a book then. They can write a book now. The difference is that now they can upload it to Amazon with a cover. Maybe they make it in Canva. Maybe they make it on their desk, whatever, do some fancy sketching. Not to say that as someone who can't draw to save my life. But anyway, the point is that you can put your book up there. You don't even need to have fancy formatting software. For a while there, you could just load it as a Word document. I used to format in HTML. Again, old. But the point is that, yeah, anybody can write a book. Anybody can publish a book. That doesn't mean your book's going to sell. That doesn't mean your book is going to get into the hands of the readers who want to read it. There is so much more to being an author than just getting the book out there. So when people were like, oh, well, you just self-publishing is just easy mode. No, it's not. What it is it removes one barrier, one major barrier where you had a very small group of people controlling what got out there. And to be perfectly honest, that small group of people didn't always know what was going to sell. They were kind of anticipating trends, and sometimes they created trends on their own, but you didn't always know. And this was also a group of people whose primary goal was to make money. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like money. Money pays my bills. But the primary goal of any publishing house is to make money so that the doors stay open, so that they can continue to publish books. They are less likely to take a risk on something they aren't sure will sell, particularly if they don't know how to sell it. And that's the fun part, because I don't always know how to sell my books either. So that has been, and I have a degree, I have an MBA in marketing. But marketing has changed. It changes every day. We have new tools. We have new platforms. You have one audience on Facebook. You have another audience on Instagram. There's an audience here for YouTube. There's an audience for TikTok. Who are you selling to? Where is your audience? Do you know how to identify them? So these are things you have to think about, whether you're a publishing house or an independent author. It does not mean you have suddenly got easy mode, because it isn't. And I would love to say that it is. And each time you think you have mastered it, something changes. So I think one of the biggest personal insights that I have in this business is that you have to be flexible. You have to be ready to know that what worked yesterday isn't going to necessarily work today or tomorrow or even next week. And maybe it worked for 4 years and now it doesn't. What worked before the pandemic didn't work during the pandemic. What worked during the pandemic may not work now. What worked prior to independent publishing isn't necessarily going to work in independent publishing. And yet, there are elements from all of these that you can learn from and go from there. And I think the biggest thing is that it boils down to reader relationships. You have to build these relationships with your readers so that your readers keep coming back to you and they keep selling your books, because that's honestly, at the end of the day, and this was true long before big publishing also that now suddenly had to compete with the indies. Word of mouth is huge. I know for a fact that I've picked up books because my friends have said, hey, you've got to read this. This is great. Or they wouldn't leave me alone about something, and they're like, you have to read this, you have to read it. I'm like, fine, I'll read it just so you'll shut up about it. And then it turns out it's a great book, and then I'm telling people you have to read it, and they read it to get me to shut up about it. When you have movies have a thing called 4-quadrant appeal. And by 4 quadrants, they mean it appeals to families, to singles, to married couples, and to seniors. And by families, they mean children. 4-quadrant appeal means they do not have to specifically target their marketing to just one group of people. They can broad spectrum their marketing, and they're going to be able to pull everybody in, and it means that they're more likely to have butts in seats than if you have a very limited niche market. Now, is there a problem with a niche market? No, but you have to know for your marketing purposes, you have to know who are you marketing to. And it's the same way in publishing. It's the same way in books. Romance, which is what I write, is a multi-billion-dollar industry. A lot of people poo-poo romance. And they look down their noses at it and say, well, that's not literature. Yeah, whatever. You know what? Romance makes a lot of money. It is still literature. It is a form of literature. It just may not be snooty literature. That's like saying that comic books aren't literature. Yes, they are. Plays are literature. A script is literature. It's just a type of literature. Then there's different genres of literature. Murder mysteries, science fiction, fantasy, horror. They're all different genres. Each has a very different market. You market the books differently to these different audiences because different audiences have different expectations, which means you need to know what appeals to them. So again, I come back to that. The big question I always have to ask myself is, who's your audience? Who are you writing this for? Who is going to be reading your book? Who wants to read your book? And of course, for most of us with imposter syndrome, nobody wants to read our book. But I could say that people who love Kay Hooper's Bishop, the special cases, special forces. Oh God, it's like they're FBI books, but it's his special cases, the Agent Bishop books. If you know, you know, and I'm sorry, that's a terrible endorsement for a series that I really do enjoy. But if I would say that audiences of that particular series might like something that I've written, not necessarily everything, but maybe they'd really enjoy my one of my books, Talk to Me, which is a thriller. It's a suspense. It's a romantic suspense, but it's still a reverse harem. But it's a romantic suspense reverse harem, and it's a pretty intense one, and it's just a duet. So maybe that would be me going, that's the audience that I'm targeting. But see, that's how I learned words appeal. So my job is words, being verbal, knowing how to market it, how to say the words, what are the hooks, what are the things that you say that get someone to go, oh, I need to see that. I have discovered that, it's like the whole idea behind okay, here I'm going to wander again. And yes, I'm supposed to be talking about my personal insights, but this is kind of it. This is the chaos that is my brain. I did say I was a chaos gremlin. Hello. Nice to meet you. One of the reasons why they put so many trailers in front of movies in theaters is because if you're me, you don't watch regular television anymore, which I haven't in years. Once they created TiVo and I could skip commercials, let me tell you how much I never watched commercials again. I used to record on my VCR. I would record my soaps every day. Yes, I am that old. And I would fast forward through the commercials. And I would use the same tape over and over until it had been redubbed and redubbed and redubbed to the point that you couldn't really watch it because it was unwatchable. And then I get a new videotape and start recording on that one. So they're not going to reach me through commercials. YouTube also has ads. I pay for the premium so I don't have to watch the ads because I don't like commercials. I just want to watch and listen to what I want to watch and listen to. If I want to watch a trailer, I will go looking for the trailer. But a lot of times I don't know to go looking for the trailer because for a while there, it didn't really feel like there was a whole lot of new stuff coming out that was really going to appeal to me. And that's not just because of the pandemic or anything. It's just because for a while there, the movies that were coming out were just not something I was going, oh, I must see that. So why they put trailers in front of movies is so that your butt is in that seat. You're kind of stuck there till your movie starts, and they will start playing the trailers, and maybe a trailer is going to hook you, and you're going to go, oh, I want to see that. And in marketing, they'll tell you, you have to see something at least 7 times to remember it. So if you see the trailer at the movie theater more than once, you see it online, you see it on your television, you see it attached to something else. Maybe you go to, I don't know, like Dateline. Wow, my head is not good with words. Like you go to a Variety magazine article, there's a movie trailer that pops up at the bottom. You can start watching the trailer. It makes you remember it. So you're going to go see it. And there were, for example, I think before I saw the trailer, I had zero interest in seeing Karate Kid Legends. Now, I haven't seen it yet. No spoilers. But before I saw the trailer, I had no interest. But the trailer made me want to go see it. And that is why you have to know your audience. That is why you have to know how to hook your audience. It's also true that you need to make sure that whatever you're hooking them with is going to be what you deliver. Because, again, if you tell them they're going to get something and you don't give it to them, you only have one chance to make a good first impression. Try not to blow it. And I tell myself that on a regular basis. So I think it's just important to know that. And don't be afraid to say, I don't have any idea what the hell I'm doing. Because you know what? None of us do. We really don't. I've been, again, published for years. I still have imposter syndrome. I still keep waiting for someone to figure out I have no idea what I'm doing. And there are days when I get up and I just want to write my books and I don't want to think about the rest of this stuff. And I kind of wish I could, because my life would be a lot easier, a whole lot less stressful, and my office hours would be a whole lot less. I would just be writing and having a good time. But the flip side is also true. Knowing what I know, knowing where the market is, what seems to be in demand, what's doing well, okay, that doesn't mean I can't write the books that I want to write, but maybe I write them in a different order. Maybe I focus on the stories that have wider market appeal right now, and then supplement it with a book that has a more limited one. That way I get to write what I want, but I'm still able to pay my bills. Again, mixed bag. And at the end of the day, readers may not know that this is really what they want or really what they need, and it may come down to as simple as it's a 10-book series. I don't want to read a 10-book series, but then they start one night because they don't have anything else to read, and then they can't put it down, and suddenly it's been a week and a half and they've read all the books. I have had readers tell me that. I've been that reader who's done that. You feel like something's intimidating until it isn't. And sometimes, particularly in more anxious times, we want the familiar, because the familiar mitigates the anxiety, versus the anxiety can amp up the tension. So you just have to know, and it's all a matter of degrees. So don't be afraid to try stuff that's new, but remember to do your homework and be willing to listen. Be willing to see what's working and what isn't. And if that means sometimes you do a new cover, or you do a new you write a different kind of blurb, so it has a better hook. There's a lot of ways to remarket a book that's already been released. There's a lot of ways to put take an old book, which I have like an old series right now that I'm in the process of reworking my way through to bring it up to date, because they're more than 10 years old, and technology has really changed in 10 years. It's kind of amazing how much it's changed. So it's important to bring things up to date so that it's got a more evergreen appeal. I mean, I can read books from the 80s and 90s. It's just like watching movies from the 80s and 90s. There's a movie called The Presidio. If you've ever seen it, it has Mark Harmon and Sean Connery and Meg Ryan. Meg Ryan's in it. It's a movie from the 80s, and there's this whole point where he's racing through the streets in his big-ass Cadillac, and he pulls up onto a sidewalk and jumps out of his car and runs over to the payphone because he's got to make a call. I didn't realize how funny that scene was to me now. I mean, it was very tense then, but now you're sitting here going, dude, just get a cell phone. But we didn't have cell phones back in the 80s. So, we did have mobile phones, but they weren't in wide release, and it was nowhere near the kind of connection you have now. So, yeah, So kind of bringing things up to date. That's why remakes are so popular. It's why retellings of familiar myths and familiar fairy tales do so well. It's a story we know, and it's a story we like. You're just giving it a little fresh facelift. Anyway, there's your personal insights for me this week. Thanks for being here. Hopefully you like, comment, subscribe, follow me on all the places. Come back. See you next week. Hopefully I share something that's worth knowing. Have a good one.